Afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your patience. My name is Caroline Player. I'm the Director of Alumni Career Services at Georgia Tech, and I'm so glad that you've joined us for this Career Conversations webinar on standing out in a job search. We'll hope that you join us again in the future, and just look on our online calendar at gtalumni.org to see all the future webinars that we have planned in career services. By means of a few housekeeping items, we have a number of you on the line, a great number for this webinar presentation. So we'd like to have you muted during the course of the webinar, but we do want this to be interactive. To send messages or questions to Hallie or myself, please just open your chat window and communicate with us there. We will try to get to everyone's questions, but we do want to be respectful of your time, so this webinar will run about 40 minutes. Without further delay, let me introduce our leader, Hallie Crawford. We are in for a treat today, and for those of you who have joined us prior, you know that. I'm excited to introduce Hallie, who is a coach, speaker, and author from Atlanta, whose coaching company, HallieCrawford.com, helps people find their dream job. Hallie moved to Atlanta 10 years ago from Chicago to escape the cold, be closer to family, and as her Southern uncle says, put some South in her mouth. She has not yet developed a Southern accent, but we'll see. For the past number of years, Hallie and our team of coaches have helped people of all ages worldwide achieve their career goals. She's published numerous books, including Career Transition Tips for Singles and her Identify Your Ideal Career Path workbook. She is regularly featured as a career expert in the media, including CNN, Fox Business News, and the Wall Street Journal. So without further delay, Hallie, I turn this over to you. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Caroline, and I'm so glad that I can hear your voice too, because I think part of why these are so great and much more dynamic is when we get to talk and you get to chime in as well. So we'll practice and I'll figure out what's going on with my audio if it's on my end. And thank you everyone for your patience. I can go a few minutes past our scheduled time just to kind of catch up a little bit too. So thanks everyone for spending your lunchtime with us on a Friday. Today we're going to be talking about creating a career one sheet. This is one of the main ways that people can stand out specifically in their job search, but I also want you all to know that it's relevant as well for people who just want to establish their brand in their industry, or for people who want to enhance it or make it stronger. So it's not just for job seekers, everybody. This is especially useful for you, but also for people who are employed and want to make sure they're kind of staying on the cutting edge in terms of their industry and remaining visible. So here's the deal, everyone. And Caroline, as we go, just let me know if you ever, if the audio is tough for you in any way. The deal is basically that standing out can be challenging, and I just wanted to share this with you all quickly just to let you know that I totally understand that. I'm not a job seeker, obviously. I help job seekers. But for me, having my own business, it's been over 13 years, and I got to tell you, in the past, I would say about 5 to 7 years, the competition in terms of career coaches, there have been more people out there starting their own businesses and doing this. It is much steeper than it used to be. And I've noticed that. And so for me as well, I always continuously need to find ways to stand out in the marketplace. One of the things we did is we launched a new website last fall. But for me, again, like I said, this is relevant for everyone. It's relevant for me as well, okay? And we know that standing out can be challenging, especially in a tough job market. So here is our basic agenda today. We're going to talk about, okay, what is a career one sheet? And you will see as we go, everyone, and by the way, you will get a recording of this webinar today. So don't feel like you have to be frantically writing, every single little thing down. You will get that afterwards. But we'll talk about not just the one sheet, but also a couple of other options that are similar to this idea of a one sheet in order to help you stand out in the market. Okay, so we'll talk about that, what it is. We'll talk about the importance of it, discuss 3 steps in order to help you create your own, clarifying what it is you need to say and how you want to say it, creating it, and then communicating it effectively to the right audience. We're going to talk about making it real at the end, because I don't know about you, but I go to these webinars and classes all the time, and I'm all jazzed and excited and have great intentions, and then my cell phone rings and all this other stuff happens. So we want to not only, I'll give you some examples of what these one sheets can look like, but also I want you all to come up with one action step that you will complete in the next week in order to make this real. And I believe Caroline's going to put up in a few weeks here our next Ideal Career program, just FYI, exclusively for Georgia Tech alumni, is going to start on July 15th. This is for people who want to define their career direction. Just a heads up on that to look out for that later.
Yeah.
Okay? All right, so what it is, I don't know, I just thought this like blue, whatever this puppy thing is in this image here, I thought it was really cool and compelling, so I had to add it to my slides. So what it is it's a one-page document, a short PowerPoint deck, and I emphasize short because it needs to be short and sweet, everyone. Or maybe it's like a design portfolio or a YouTube video, okay, that you use in order to stand out in the market and enhance your resume. So it's in addition to your resume and your cover letter, everyone. And the idea is that it showcases your expertise and in some cases your soft skills, okay? So the deal is, and hopefully everyone knows what soft skills are, but just in case not, you know, your resume is going to talk about soft skills and hard skills. Hard skills are this, okay, I know this kind of software. You know, I've had this kind of experience. Soft skills are like great team player, good communicator, you know, effective at listening to clients' needs and or communicating complex ideas effectively, okay, something like that. And these other sheets here, one sheet, for example, can be another way to showcase your soft skills because on our resume, usually we're focused on those hard skills pretty often. So it's just another way to kind of add to that. Caroline, I'm curious, have you ever seen these before or helped people with them, anything like this?
You know, I actually have seen folks, examples of this, folks that definitely advocate for a type of unique representation of candidacy instead of the traditional resume and using it as a supplemental material. I haven't personally worked, I work more with the resumes than this, but I'll be interested to see more information about the one-sheeter.
Okay, cool, groovy. Well, yeah, and if you have ideas too, obviously share as you always do. Okay, so let's go to next slide here, everyone. So we talked about what it is, and here's what it is not. It is not a repeat of your resume, and it is not a long-winded document without purpose, you know, thought or targeted information. So the reason why I put this in here is because I actually wrote a blog post about this, and I include a link to that blog post, everyone, at the end of this today, so you'll be able to read it later if you want to. And someone interestingly made a comment on it and said, well, I figured that this one sheet would be something where you could, you know, talk about your skills and accomplishments. And I think that, you know, I just wanted to be really clear here that yes, you can talk about those things, but it is not just a repeat of the resume. It's a chance to talk about maybe some of those skills and accomplishments, but in a more in-depth way. And even in some cases, things that maybe you didn't have a place to fit in on your resume, for example. So just be really careful of this. It's not just a repeat of that. It's supposed to enhance it and add to it, okay? So 3 reasons why this is important. I don't know, I thought this was funny about the, you know, the steep competition for jobs. So the first reason why I think it's important to create something like this is there's very steep competition for jobs, as we know, and there's a stat here, the link to the article with the statistic in it. It's here at the bottom of the slide, everyone, that there are at least 3 people for each opening. This was published in 2014, so it's, you know, just last year. But I think we all know, and I still hear this from clients frequently, is that they are getting a lot of applications for their job postings, and there's, you know, a lot of clients who are not getting jobs are still telling me, you know, they said they found a better candidate who's more qualified. I mean, it's very tough, as we know. So number 1 reason is the competition, okay? Number 2 is the same goes for people who are employed and you want to stand out for a promotion, for example. So I thought this was an interesting article here. One reason that people don't get promotions is because they're not visible enough. And so I think, too, even if we are employed, we have to continuously, what I always, you know, tell clients is you need to treat your career as your best asset and make sure that you're standing out, whether it's in your own company or organization or within your industry in order to establish and maintain your brand. So in addition, this can help with, you know, helping you stand out for a possible promotion as well, okay? And the last reason, the third reason is, like we just talked about a second ago, establishing or promoting your brand. It will help you not just stand out from the crowd, everyone, but think about this too, that it can help position you as an expert and also be like a memorable takeaway. For example, you know, if you're at a networking event, let's say, and you hand someone your business card and you say, by the way, there's a link here to this report that I created about a problem in our industry, something like that, that can help it be memorable for that other person. Does that make sense, Caroline?
It does.
Are those good? Okay. And I just liked these apples too with the red at the top. I thought that illustrated it well. Okay, so let me think about this. Okay, so let's move to the first step and how to create this. First of all, we need to clarify your purpose. So, you know, why is this important? You need to understand why and who. What your goal is. Okay, so why do you want to create this? Is it for that new job? And even more so, everyone, if you are trying to, for example, look for a new job, but you want to get into a different industry, this can be even more helpful for you because you're trying to position yourself as an expert or at least knowledgeable in that new industry, even if you don't have as much experience, let's say, as someone else might. So the why and your goal is really important. So you need to think about, okay, why am I creating it? Is it for networking? Is it for my job search? Is it for standing out in my industry? And you need to think about, you know, what you want to highlight, okay? Is it your creativity? Is it your leadership? You know, we'll talk about those in just a moment, like, you know, what you want to create. But you also want to think about who your target audience is. Is it your current boss, you know, because you feel like, hey, I got passed over for a promotion last year, so I got to work on this. Or a prospective employer. Is it for peers in your industry? Or is it even to stand out from your competition? If you're in sales, for example, and maybe your company is lagging behind for whatever reason. Do you need to do something in order to kind of shake things up and stand out from your competition at other companies, you know, that you're, you know, they're also selling the same product, okay? Or service, I should say, too. Okay, so this slide has a lot on it, so we'll leave it here for just a minute so you all can read, and remember you'll get these as well. But you need to also think about how to clarify, you know, what you want to say here, okay? So think about the target audience, like we just talked about, what your goal is, okay? And also think about, look at number 3 here at the bottom. And actually, let's do number 2 and 3. So I wanted to point out this identify and solve an industry problem. So for example, if you're like looking to change into or get into a new industry that's different from what you've been in before, or the sales example I gave a moment ago, one of the things you could do is identify like, okay, what is an industry-wide problem that I could offer some solutions for? That's one way to come up with possible content here, okay? And then the third thing to think about too, you need to consider is the what. What type of job are you looking for or are you in? So this will help you think about the content in terms of, for example, if you're looking for like a management or in a management position, a leadership position, would it be good for you to describe and help people understand what your leadership style is? Or if you're like a graphic designer or, for example, in a creative field, you could talk about like your design philosophy, something like that. So you want to think about, okay, what is it that I could like, you know, kind of give a different spin to? What topic could I talk about in order to stand out? Does that make sense, Caroline?
It certainly does.
Okay.
Nice framework.
So these are things that you want to think about in order to clarify what you want to communicate. Okay. All right. And the next slide, take a look at this, everyone. So as part of clarifying, so on step number 1 here, these are some possible things you could include on your one sheet or in your document. Okay, what you have to offer. Obviously, you want to think about what employers are looking for. You could also kind of review your resume and think about, okay, what's left out? What would add to the picture for an employer? So I gave some examples just a moment ago, so you could think about this, like, okay, what is my philosophy of design or leadership or something else maybe? Soft skills, like we said before, that are not on your resume. And any other added information on projects maybe. Remember, everyone, like when we're writing our resume, I mean, space is very like precious there. And if there is a project that you know, it's important, but you didn't have as much space to describe it enough about, you know, what your impact was or the results on your resume. This could be, you know, you could add that additional information on projects on your one sheet. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you can think of, Caroline, that we could include? I was trying to brainstorm other ideas too.
I think that is good for our start.
Okay, all right, good. Okay, so let's move to, I'm going to give you, we're still on step number 1 here. I'm going to give you all a client example. Both of these examples are given with permission from these clients, okay? And I'm just going to show you really quickly. So this is a former client of ours, Tim. He's actually out in California. And what he did is on his LinkedIn profile, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit too, in step number 3 in terms of how do you communicate it and where, what he did is he has on his LinkedIn profile the summary, and you can't see it because it's cut off a little bit at the bottom, but you all can feel free to look him up, and I'm actually going to give you a link in a minute to be able to download and look at this. But at the very last line of his summary statement here, if you look on the slide, he has a Dropbox link. Dropbox, you can sign up for free. It's a free service, and you can share files and documents that way. And what he did is it's a live link from his LinkedIn, and people can click on it or copy and paste it. It might not be live. It might be just that they have to copy and paste, but either way, it's right there. And then it links to this Dropbox file, and this is basically a little bit of a sample of what he has. This is not the whole thing, but he is looking for a leadership position. And so he has his leadership philosophy. And I'll tell you all, the recruiters that he has used this with or sent it to and the employers have been very impressed because it adds to the picture of him. And remember, if you're in a job search especially, you want to be painting that picture of what would it be like to hire me in order to, you know, sell yourself. And so this is just a little snippet of what is further down here in this document. Okay, so you all, when you get the audio or the recording from this afterwards, you should be able to kind of copy and paste this into your browser and take a look at it. Okay, Caroline, any questions or comments, or are we good?
I think we're good. I really like this because I think so many people feel so pressed to put so much detail on their resume when it may not be comparably standard to other resumes. This gives you a great chance to expand on that and communicate that value and, like you said, more of a multifaceted picture of yourself. So I really do like that.
Yeah, I do too. And it shows a lot of initiative as well. I mean, I think that's part of what's great too. So good, wonderful. Okay, so let's move to, so this was clarifying your purpose and starting to think, everyone, about, okay, what would I use this for, A, and B, you know, what kind of content might I want to include based on that? And I would actually say, I just thought of this, that if you all wanted to do more than one thing, like I think that it's completely acceptable. It might be cool to even have a one sheet, but also like a quick YouTube video intro. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. I've got a website that you all can look at some examples. But I think that that would be really neat too, because it's got that personal touch to it. If you're good at videos, you could try your hand there. And also the one sheet too. So I don't think there's anything wrong with doing more than one of these, but I definitely wouldn't do like 5, everyone. That diminishes the message. Okay,
Callie,
so
quick question here, if you don't mind me jumping in, just because I think it's good to cover it right now. Would you say, in the question is, how is this different from a cover letter? And my opinion is a cover letter is specific to the job and or company that you're applying with. So you want to use what they're asking for and relay the experiences that you have that are specific to that job versus this being a more general presentation of your philosophy and experience. Would you say that's the case?
I would. I think that's a great question, and that's exactly how I would answer it. I think also the one sheet or separate document can allow you to elaborate on what you might touch on in your cover letter. True. But yeah, for example, with Tim's example, I mean, his is 2 pages, I think. It's a little bit long in my opinion, but you definitely obviously wouldn't include that. So I tell people do it in addition to a cover letter, and I think it's good to think about, yeah, how it's different. That's perfect.
Okay.
So here's what I would say, everyone, in terms of content and kind of the criteria. So we're on step number 2, creating it. And I want to share a couple things before we move to the next slide, too, that are going to be relevant to the next slide, but I want to share them right now as well. So I'll do that, too. So in terms of the content, one thing that you can consider is like your career objective. And here's the deal. We don't, for my company, we typically don't recommend our clients include an objective on their resume because resume space is precious and the employer knows you're interested in their job, so we feel the objective isn't necessary. You don't need to say, my goal is this. I mean, they know you're applying for your job. But on the one sheet, you could expand upon it, why you're interested in their position, and even more, perhaps mention what your long-term career goals are. Now, you could mention those in your cover letter, but I kind of think that, you know, diminishes things too. In your cover letter, you want to talk more about why you're valuable to the employer. So this could be a way to kind of just add that nice piece of, hey, what are my long-term career goals? What is my plan? And why I'm really excited about this job as well, okay? The second thing is, on your one sheet, you can provide additional detail about your accomplishments, more so than you would on your resume, like we talked about, because space might be limited. You could include projects you worked on and tell the story of your impact in those that you may, again, not include on your resume because you might have limited space, okay? And also, this goes to the cover letter too, that same question, I think. If you're in a creative field, your one sheet could be part of the portfolios you submit. Like, so if you have any design samples or whatever, you could put your design philosophy in there too. So the design examples under content here on the slide is just another thought. And in terms of criteria, when you're thinking about how to create it, you want to make it very easy to access or take away. That's part of why I like either Dropbox or you can use Google Drive. You want to make sure that it's very easy to read. You include bulleted lists and make it easy to scan and read. You know, sometimes I think we tend to speak in our industry language and you want to use layman's terms, make sure it's easy for people to understand. And I personally think it's great to include a photo. Tim actually does not on his one sheet because, in part because it's connected to his LinkedIn profile. But I think it's good to do that because that's that personal touch. And remember, people hire people. They don't hire a piece of paper. So in the case of job seekers, and even I think if you're looking at just branding yourself, you have a job, it's a great idea to include a photo too. Does that all make sense, Caroline?
It does.
Okay, all right, cool. So let's go to the next slide. And I think we're doing good on time here, so I'm paying attention to that too. Okay, so in terms of creating, these are some additional things that in terms of content and, you know, ways that you can communicate it, okay? So on your one sheet, you could add a link, and I would suggest it to your LinkedIn page, just so they kind of go back and forth and the person could go to your LinkedIn page. So, for example, if someone, for whatever reason, gets a hold of your one sheet and not everything else, they can go back to that. We talked about, you know, considering a video introduction, link to your portfolio. I also like the idea, everyone, of including testimonials. I have, honestly, lately, seen people include very short testimonials on their resume from LinkedIn underneath, you know, each job. If it gets too cluttered for you or you're not comfortable with that, testimonials could be a place that you could use the one sheet to do that, okay? And I also just wanted to show you this link here at the bottom. This has some video introduction examples. Some of them I like on this site, so check those out too, because that can give you some examples of short videos you could do as well, okay? And when you're thinking about content, everyone, I just wanted to share this really quickly. This is the career model that we use with our clients. And you all, if you've been to one of our previous webinars, you may have seen this before. But if you're trying to determine, okay, what kind of content could I include, you could use any of these pieces on the model to help you get ideas, except for compensation and environment. So I've kind of X'd those out here. But one of the things I wanted to explain here is, so for example, education. You could provide on your one sheet more information on projects you worked on, but you know, any other classes that you've taken that kind of helps beef up your education or experience. When you think about your personality type at the top right here, the soft skills you bring to the table, great team leader with the ability to motivate specifically or hold your team accountable, or you know, for example, if you're great at establishing relationships with clients quickly for sales purposes, for consulting work. when you think about your personality type, that could give you ideas about what you could mention there. And the StrengthsFinder assessment, I'll just show you this slide real quick, is one great way to help you identify what some of your soft skills might be, everyone. Yes, it is a test about your strengths, but it can also help you articulate not just what those are, but what your personality traits are and soft skills, okay? So I just wanted to show you that real quick. We'll go back to this one. And I want to give you a quick story about why I actually think this fulfillment piece in the bottom right could help you with this. I had a former client who I was talking to recently, and he hired, I believe, about like 11 people within a two-month period, a lot of growth at the company he was at. He was a VP there. And he told me point blank, he said, if someone in an interview could not tell me why they were excited about this job or passionate about what they did in terms of work and articulate it clearly and, you know, in an authentic way, he wouldn't hire them. And I don't know if you've ever heard that, Caroline. I mean, I thought it was really interesting, but it makes sense. You know, if you're an employer,
really
you want somebody who wants
a lot of times when I'm working with a client, even yesterday, doing a mock interview, I think enthusiasm about the opportunity or the field in general almost nothing goes as far as enthusiasm. You know, of course, you have the qualification and the skill in that area, but absolutely, enthusiasm is so important.
Yeah, and I thought it was great because I think it goes back to the competition for jobs. I mean, I'm sure he was hiring people that were all qualified on paper, you know, for the position. And this was probably the make or break for the people who got the jobs versus not, if they could articulate this. So the fulfillment and enjoyment pieces, everyone, are actually relevant for what we're talking about. And you could put, you know, why I'm passionate about something and excited about something. Totally appropriate, okay? StrengthsFinder we talked about. Let's talk about step number 3. I just thought these little guys were so cute here. What is that game? It's like telephone or something like that. So in terms of step number 3, everyone, the last thing obviously that you want to do is communicate it and get this out there, get your one sheet or whatever it is out there, okay? So I would suggest link it from your resume. You could put a link at the top, okay, like under your, you know, your name and contact information as well as your LinkedIn profile. You can link from it from Facebook or LinkedIn. You know, I'm still kind of on the fence about Facebook, everybody. I mean, some people use it for professional networking, some people don't. That's up to you, but it's an idea, a place you could put it as well. If it's a video, post it on YouTube. Tim, in particular, he sends it in with his application if he can, and like I said, he gives it to the recruiters as well. I kind of like this idea too, these last two, adding it to the signature line in your work-specific job search email address. That's kind of a lot. It should just say probably job search with a mouthful there. But what I always suggest to people, by the way, if you're in job search mode, if that's your situation, that you have a specific email address just for that job search. So you keep everything kind of corralled in one place. And I would put it on your signature line there, or for if you're employed, your current work signature at the bottom, okay? And then also, like we talked about earlier, adding it to your business card. Caroline, any other thoughts about where you could put it?
I think that is a nice list of places that it could appear easily. No, I think that's great.
That's what I was thinking too. I was trying to think of other ones, but then I was like, okay, I think we've covered it. There's a lot there.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Okay.
A lot of
so think about, I mean, and I think too, when you're networking with people, everyone, you can mention this, like, you know, hand them your card and say, I've got this cool thing here, check it out, give me feedback, whatever. So that's part of where you could put on your business card too.
Right.
Okay, so let's take a look at this next slide here, and this is a second example. Okay, so I took out the client's name here and information, but this is a short PowerPoint deck, and you all should be able to, after this, access it using the Google Docs here. And Caroline, I just realized that sometimes when people get the webinar recording, you can't copy and paste. So how about I do this? When I send you the PowerPoint like as a PDF, I will include everyone these links in that email so that Caroline can blast it out to you all, okay?
That sounds perfect.
Okay, so let's do that. But I like this a lot. So what he did is, I think it's about 8 slides, so it's short and sweet, and I'm not going to go through all of it today because it'll take too long. But he identified and said, okay, I want to get into a new industry, different from what he had been doing before. And his experience and expertise and his current job and position is in Latin America, but in a different industry. He actually works for the mobile phone industry, and he wants to get into renewable energy. Okay, so he took some time to do a little bit of research about kind of the state of the union in Latin America regarding renewable energy and put this short PowerPoint deck together. He shares it with people when he does informational interviews with recruiters, everything else. I think it's very impressive because then at the very end, everyone, he gives, here are some possible ways we can overcome these challenges or how we can get into, this market. So just consider that a PowerPoint presentation, keeping it short and sweet, is a possibility as well. Does that make sense, Caroline?
It does. It does.
Okay, cool. All right. So really quickly, let's move to action here in just a second here, and I've got some additional resources. So if you all need help with this or anything else related to your career, we do offer a complimentary consultation. There's low-cost products on our site. And we are going to do a door prize here, so we will pull a name out of a hat and someone my career transition ebook, so you'll get that as well. But I'm happy to chat with anyone who needs further assistance with this, okay? So 2 additional resources here. There's a YouTube video I did talking about your career one sheet, and also the second article on TalentZoo has more information in addition to what we talked about today, okay? So you can think about and check that out if you'd like to afterwards. So I want you all to, I feel like a fire hose today. I've given you a lot of information, so let's take a step back and take a breath here for a second. And I want you all to think about what action step you would like to take in the next week, so that would be by next Friday, in order to work on this. So first of all, thinking about, okay, do I want to do it in the first place, right? And please feel free, because we'll pause for a moment here and start to let the questions roll in. Feel free to start asking questions because we have just one more slide after this.
And if you feel like this action step would be, you'd be better accountable to it, if you drop it in the chat window and let us know, we'll do anonymously report back and give perhaps folks some ideas as well.
Yes, perfect. So think about, okay, I'd like to try my hand at a video or, whatever it is, and write it down. And then feel free to share it in the chat box, okay? So I'll give you a moment.
And I love the idea, Hallie, just to bounce back to that PowerPoint presentation while people are thinking, one of the things that I think people see as a hurdle when they're transitioning from a career field that they've been in for so long, sort of categorized by that, is to take that initiative like that gentleman did to say, here, I'm not only interested, but I'm educating myself in that. I really like that as a one-sheeter, less about him and more about his perspective and the research that he's done. So, it looks like it doesn't have to be about you specifically. If you're looking to make a transition into a new area, just your thoughts on that might be interesting too.
Yeah, and thanks for saying that, Caroline, because that's just a whole different perspective that I didn't point out, that it doesn't always have to be about you. It can be, but even if you think about, if you've been in your industry for a long time and you need to freshen things up or, whatever, like you could almost do one of these once every, 6 months or a year or something, just to keep conversations going at conferences and, continue to establish yourself with your brand. I do this all the time. I'm generating content frequently, and it's different because I'm a business owner, but still I need to do that in order to continuously position myself as an expert and show that for you all that you're on top of trends and, what's important in your industry. And it could turn into, an article for a conference or for your industry newsletter or a talk that you end up doing, as another way to stay visible too, okay? So that's good, Caroline. Thanks for bringing that up. And I didn't let you talk very much today because I was just blabbing, so.
That is quite all right. Just to confirm with the gentleman who submitted, yes, the slides will be available from this presentation. I will also send a link to we'll upload this onto the GT Alumni Career Services YouTube channel, so you'll have a complete verbal account of this as well.
Yeah, and we'll send the links along too, so they can click on them or copy and paste, make it easier.
That'd be perfect.
So just as the questions are rolling in as we start to wrap up here, I just wanted to leave you all with this. I do this at every presentation. I love this quote. And this is the thing that constantly pushes me to try something new or do something different. So, you know, in order to stand out from the crowd, it does take courage and risk in some way, okay? And we have to do this in order to move forward. So I really encourage you all, even if the video thing seems freaky to you, just try it. Get a friend and, you know, play around with it and see how it goes. Get a friend to help you. I have clients who will say, well, I don't know what to put, or, you know, I don't know what to say, and they'll just kind of analysis paralysis sometimes. And I always tell them, just throw something down on paper, get started, get the ball rolling. It will get easier as you go. You just got to take that first step, okay? So again, thank you all for being here today. We'll open it up for questions, and I can spend at least, you know, about 5 minutes, Caroline, for questions, Q&A if we need.
Okay, great. And let me just tap onto that what Hallie just said, and you know, thinking beyond, I thought of another opportunity that might showcase your technology acumen as well. You know, when people create their own websites that both show their technical abilities but also communicate about their brand or interest or knowledge in an area, that could be a really great way to get this information across as well.
I agree. And to your point, to add to that too, because I think that's so true, is everyone, you want to think about, okay, who your audience is and what you're trying to communicate and what format is going to be the best.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, in the report that the client was doing, the PowerPoint made the most sense. It makes it a little bit more dynamic, easy to digest, less than just, oh, I'm reading this, you know, Word document, okay? But in some cases, it's better to have a Word document because it's going to be more text heavy, for example. So think about that too. What's the best way to communicate it format-wise?
So a question, Hallie, how is online presence important in career development?
I think it's becoming more and more so. I will say that I believe that some industries place more value on it than others. So for example, I have a client who works in education and higher ed, and I think she was right. I mean, she knew better than I did because she's familiar with her industry, but she said people aren't on LinkedIn as much as in some industries. So it does depend a little bit industry-wise, and I think that's where you just have to get a sense of, okay, how many of your peers are on it, and you can do a little bit of searching on LinkedIn to identify that. But in my opinion, it's going to be critical for everyone, you know, even in the next several years. So I think you absolutely have to be on LinkedIn, regardless of industry, just because you never know. Someone might, you know, be looking for your brand of talent, and they will look there. I mean, employers use LinkedIn a ton to identify candidates. So what I think it's crucial, and what I would say is I would start with, for example, LinkedIn as your basis, the first step. If you're not on it at all, do one thing right, not 5 things poorly. So start with LinkedIn, work on that, and then if you're ready to expand to more, you can do more.
I think that's great. And I would add to that, and I absolutely agree, that there is the LinkedIn basis. If you want to be found and you want recruiters that are looking to involve you in a search process that, you know, is going to be at a higher level than your current job, that absolutely making yourself available to them through that LinkedIn means is fantastic. And you can use LinkedIn in so many ways now through these status updates, sharing articles, you know, sharing little words of advice, commenting in discussions on, for example, the Georgia Tech Alumni Group or in other professional organization groups that you're a member of on LinkedIn. It can be great for having your profile, but also the visibility that some of that activity gives you on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, so it's not just for job seekers. I was thinking that as you were talking. I spoke with, she was very high up at Edelman, I can't remember, a VP there, and this was at least 5 years ago, maybe even more, and she said, if I, you know, am talking to someone, a colleague or peer or whatever, and they're not on LinkedIn, I don't think that they consider their professional development, you know, important. So even for people who are currently employed and not looking to change, I do. I think LinkedIn is important for that as well, for that, you know, branding and expertise.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, those are the only questions I had on our end, and it looks like we're right at time anyways, Hallie. So let's conclude for the day. Got a nice compliment from someone on the good tips and tricks. It's very executable, so we hope that you'll take these tips and ideas and use them to your benefit in this 1 week time frame and beyond. Thanks so much for participating today, and Hallie, thanks so much for your leadership.
You are welcome. It was a pleasure. Have a great day, everyone.
All right. Thanks. You all have a great weekend.